Bitcoin could be the new currency for global trade. Citibank says. It's basically what Citibank is saying, and they're one of the biggest recipients of bailouts in American history and part of this financial system whereby, China's eating their lunch and payment system because the likes of Citibank never bothered to get out of bed. They wouldn't get out of bed for $10,000. They can't be bothered to come up with any innovations. Well, they, in a report entitled Bitcoin at the Tipping Point, it charts the evolution of Bitcoin from a form of payment to its current status as the store of value.
Happening right now because the transaction is the settlement. So you don't need Citibank. It obviates Citibank. It makes Citibank redundant, as are all banks redundant with Bitcoin. I can trade with you as a currency, and it doesn't require any bank. Doesn't require a central bank. And they got a little bit reversed. They're saying it started off as a means of payment and people are looking at it as a store of value. But in fact, it started off as a store of value and now it's morphing into a means of payment. That's the whole history of money. So Citibank should know at least the history of money and how money comes into existence. But nevertheless, a good effort. And I applaud them for at least recognizing that they're about to go out of business.
But being involved in Bitcoin early in those days, there were many participants who thought it was like, we're going to compete with PayPal. We're going to compete with Visa. It's going to be a settlements. It's going to be used as a means of exchange like that. As you point out, it was actually always a store of value. And in fact, they point out the perceptions. They say perceptions about what makes Bitcoin important continue to evolve and create new opportunities while increasing its perception towards becoming mainstream. It's becoming more mainstream because people's perceptions, i.e. the thing that the Fed, Jerome Powell, is always trying to manage perceptions, right? That's what Fed speak is all about. They go out there to speak to the market and say, don't worry, we're going to take care of inflation. Don't worry, we're not printing too much money. You might perceive it, if you look over there, like at the food costs, like you might perceive it as a bad situation. But listen to me, I'm massaging your perception about the situation. Well, here the situation is being perceived as being a better store of value than the US dollar and perceived by international participants in the global market. They're perceiving this as a more neutral, better to use settlements layer.
Right, there's $5 trillion a day in Forex market, foreign exchange, and that can be completely replaced with a Bitcoin as the base layer. And we've seen that demonstrated now by sending currency from country to country, starting off in one currency, arriving at the destination in that local currency instantaneously, virtually at no cost. Central bank digital currencies under the bus. They're like central bank digital currencies, by definition, are central. Therefore, they cannot compete with Bitcoin. So Citibank, again, just threw another industry under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, because of course the central bankers are going to look at this threat, the competitor, a better competitor of Bitcoin, and say, well, how do we act like them? Whoever controls that system, and it's a dollar system right now, like obviously they were pretty fair and open about it when they were outcompeted everybody. When we produced all the semiconductor chips, when we produced all the cars, when we produced all the high tech. But now that other countries are way ahead of us in some aspects, we're like, well, you know what? We're going to slow your payments down. That's how we can outcompete you. We're going to make it harder for you to even trade with anybody. So this is what Citibank is saying. They're agreeing with us. Once again, Keiser Report was right. Citibank was wrong until now.
China has a 5-year lead over the U.S. in e-commerce payments. China's already working on 6G, whereas U.S. has yet to roll out 5G. The U.S. has no 5G. The product from Verizon is a hoax. They don't have 5G. So we borrowed $4 trillion last year, increased the money supply by 25%. It seems like we're, really far behind on technology and we're borrowing too much money. I mean, how is this playing in Washington? Are the alarm bells sounding or are they asleep at the switch?
One of the things that China does is they play a long game. They play a 25, 50, 100-year game of chess, while we play checkers all day long on share price fluctuations on a day-to-day basis, quarterly results, 2 to 4 year election cycles, et cetera. And that creates a real problem for us to invest in infrastructure and for us to invest in R&D. They are doing that great. And by the way, if you want to look at case studies, the best ones to look at right now are 1993, when they said they are not going to participate in our GPS, our global positioning satellite system, they were going to create their own. And guess what? They have. In 1997, they said they are not going to participate in the World Wide Web. They wanted to create their own and bifurcate it from the rest of the world. Guess what? They have. They're doing the same thing with 5G and 6G, and they're going to do it with microchips on their 2025 vision. We are getting left behind, and we need to smarten up. One thing about Donald Trump, whether you liked him or hated him, he pulled the fire alarm and said, we need to wake up to this China challenge. Time is running out, and we need to get serious about it. Whether he applied getting serious to it or not is one thing to debate. But what he did do is pull the fire alarm. We need to keep pulling it. We need to implement change now to address this.
I noticed that Stan Druckenmiller, very famous money manager, he said he's going very, very short the dollar and long Asia. Okay, so money flows to where the returns are the greatest. And so the money management industry doesn't seem fazed by these issues